Xbox had quite a year for games that you can't natively run on an Xbox. You can now play all the games your dad and his dad played on just one home entertainment device. Or maybe you want to get a bit nerdy and emulate a whole Windows Dinosaur OS with gaming capabilities. Why? Just so I can pull a slight flex by writing part of this script on a Series 98. And the once great king of emulators on the Microsoft machine, RetroArch, gets dethroned as more and more standalone emulators rise up with their impressive quality and features. Want even more? Okay, 2023 is already looking interesting, for a multitude of reasons I'll discuss. All of this and more as we recap all the emulating madness that went on in 2022 and look forward to what's next. This is the state of emulating on an Xbox Series X and S in 2023. Let's get into it. Greetings, my name is Efrain. I like playing games on the Xbox and telling you all about those games in a video. Thanks for tuning in. And before we get into all the emulating an Xbox can do, let me just answer a quick question some might be asking.
Why?
It's definitely a serious question, especially when there are so many other device options like the Steam Deck or a PC, and to put it bluntly, Xbox is the more casual and affordable device option. The Steam Deck is by far the best emulating device, with the added benefit of being portable. And a PC simply is the best overall machine, being the most versatile of the devices. But the Xbox is by far the cheaper device, less expensive but still very powerful, and can be put in your living room with simple plug and play features. It's for people who don't have a whole lot to spend and want to get the most gaming for their buck, and I think that's pretty cool. Now I like to think most people are mature and civil, but I already know someone's going to come around here and fling console peasant at me or anyone who thinks the same. Nobody cares about your expensive machine, Timmy. It doesn't make you cool to say or think these things, or change the fact that everyone calls you a little spitfuck behind your back. Grow up, dude. Alright, moving on. And if the pricing isn't enough of a reason for you to emulate on an Xbox, consider how awesome it is that you can install all this cool stuff on what was supposed to be a closed-off retail device. In not so many words, do it because you can. Be a rebel. Play games on a gaming console. The power, ease, and flexibility of the system is there for you to have a great emulating experience. But that's enough of the why you can do. Let's start talking about the what you can do, starting with one of the easiest emulating methods that doesn't require a single program installation. First off, Edge. Admittedly, this is not a 2022 Xbox emulation thing. This method / exploit is kind of old, but I still like to highlight it because it's absolutely incredible and the simplest way to play retro games. I slept on it in the past, which was downright criminal of me. You can theoretically do this straight out of the box with nothing but an internet connection, and the quality of these games is surprisingly good. What you have to do is simply launch the Microsoft Edge app and Google search some Java-based emulators hosted on websites. Now legally I can't disclose these websites, blah blah blah, Google or Bing search them. When you do find a website, you most definitely will have to sit through ads or pop-ups.
This Subaru Crosstrek. Dog tested, dog approved.
Cool. And after a quick and simple load up, all you have to do is switch the controller from a web browsing tool to an actual gamepad, and you're off. At the moment, 6th generation games, PS2, Dreamcast, Wii, and GameCube aren't playable using a web browser, but almost all the games played using this method worked incredibly well. There were some oddities, but almost all the 80s and 90s library can simply be played in your Xbox browser. It's so impressive on several levels. The Xbox has the power to do this, Microsoft Edge on the console gets PC equivalent functionality, and games can just be straight up emulated and played on the web. And the condition at which they play at are surprisingly good. But every game I played ran smoothly. Everything looked, sounded, and felt amazing, which is a true testament to how powerful the series consoles are, but also how impressive Microsoft's been at improving their web browser on consoles.
Wow.
There are definite downsides, however. For one, you need an internet connection, which for most people isn't that big of a deal, but for a minority it might be a small obstacle. I also ran into the problem of some games black screening or losing connection in the middle of gameplay. Pretty rare occurrence, but something to look out for as well. And then there's the websites. You will have to do a bit of trial and error because some websites are a raging bowl of feces. And finally, there's a lack of options and modifications. You can upscale and enable widescreen patches, but I think actual emulator programs handle these features far better. Obviously, there's more I can say and get into, but I'll leave it here because there is a lot more to talk about. I mean, just look at the goddamn runtime of this video. Hey person putting this on in the background while they do other shit, how's it going? In summation, Edge is a great emulation tool on the Xbox, especially if you don't want to deal with finding ROMs and BIOSes, installing emulators and other programs, or searching for info on the web as to how to get things up and running. It's not perfect, but it's a fast and easy way to play classic Nintendo, arcade, PlayStation, and Sega games on your Xbox. And speaking of fast and easy, so, this is some breaking news type shit. While I was out vacationing in Seattle, Microsoft pulled a fast one on all of us and finally blocked retail emulation. As of April 6th, 2023, you can no longer use emulators on mainline Xbox. If you have these puppies installed before the block, you'll get a message stating that the app violates MS's terms and you cannot launch it. This sucks for a lot of reasons. One being that I have more work to do. Like seriously, I had this all recorded when Seattle is going to put it together, and now this shit. But in all seriousness, it's a real shame. Overnight, Xbox eliminated a fantastic gaming element of the console that was super easy to access and brought joy to a lot of people. I can't say I'm surprised though, it was only a matter of time until Microsoft took action. Since 2010, emulators have been banned on the MS Store, and the retail rebels were essentially sneaking them through on private sites and shops. No idea why MS acted so suddenly though. There were telltale signs of Microsoft cracking down as the hosting stores were being removed more swiftly than before. There are various rumors circulating online that Nintendo and Sony have finally decided to give Microsoft an old legal slap on the wrist because of all the emulators running rampant on their console. Another rumor hitting the homebrew ecosystem is that Microsoft may be planning an emulator release of their own to compete with Steam's official emulation releases. These have not been confirmed in any way. It is way too early to tell why Microsoft did what they did. It's all currently rumors. Oops, all rumors. I do feel bad because there were many people super invested in emulation on the series, and retail offered a quick and easy way to go about doing that. But honestly, retail was always on borrowed time. Everybody knew the company would act sooner or later. As of right now, developer mode emulation is still fine and doesn't seem to be affected. It is quite nerve-wracking as Microsoft can quickly just turn around and pull the plug on all emulation if they deem it an acceptable course of action. Is it come for dev mode next is hard to tell. Personally, I'd say they wouldn't do that. Developer mode is 1. A service you need to pay for and activate, and B. A sandbox element of Xbox where you can run whatever you want, closed off from all Xbox Live and MS Store systems. It'd be hard to police emulation in dev mode. Some people actually use it for app and game development. Precisely targeting emulation programs in dev mode would be extremely difficult. I imagine actual dev projects would be falsely targeted and evaporated. Going scorched earth on the entire feature would screw over a lot of people as well, causing outrage and potential lawsuits. Doing so would make console hackers go to town on the machines and bypass Xbox security features. There's a lot of other reasons, but in general, this would not be a great decision from the company.
Fucking shit.
For retail refugees, dev mode is currently your best option and the significantly safer approach. It might suck that you have to pay a small fee and you have to switch over from retail to dev mode, a wait time of like 1 to 3 minutes, get over it, but it's still a great way to experience emulated games on a budget machine. You get to install what you want, what version, and whenever you want to. The drawbacks are vastly outweighed by the magnitude of games you can still play in dev mode. And now, because I answer this question in every one of these videos, you cannot be banned from Xbox Live for playing emulated games, especially now that everything has been forcibly migrated to dev mode. Everybody can rest easy about their accounts being banned, even if you still have the retail programs installed. Although you still can't be banned by having the now defunct retail emulators, you might want to scrub those out of your hard drive anyway. Reasons being, A, they're taking up storage space now, and 2, don't give MS an opportunity to target retail emulation practitioners further. I honestly doubt they'll ban people now, but better to be safe than sorry. Don't worry, I will answer this question in another 6 months when I put out the next emulation video.
I guarantee it.
It never ends, this topic. Ugh, Jesus. Let's first check in on our old Xbox emulation buddy. Despite the advancement of several UWP standalones and Java-based emulators on internet browsers, RetroArch should still have a place in your app library.
But why?
Well, apart from the fact it's easier to get to your favorite collection of games, it's also ad-free and very customizable. Now I'll be talking about the systems and games that I discussed in the Microsoft Edge portion of this video, mostly. Sure, RetroArch is a bit better than Edge, as you can play PS2 and GameCube games, but not too great. No! As a matter of fact, RetroArch's strength is in the amounts of games you have access to. You can play all the games up to the PlayStation 2 era of video gaming on an Xbox, but the program doesn't excel at any particular core. Kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. Still, the quality for most games in the 80s and 90s era is top-notch. And the Nintendo DS. They all play very nicely, and whatever type of small visual or sound oddity is negligible. Doesn't make or break a game. For now, RetroArch is still the best way to emulate Nintendo 64 games on the Xbox. Microsoft Edge can handle a lot of the games of the 90s console, sure, but you'll have to get lucky and find the right website, and then the game has to work properly in terms of gameplay and controls. And then of course there's the ads. They are annoying as hell, and I'd rather get my nipples twisted and be slapped right in the cock than watch a commercial before I can play a game. N64 on RetroArch isn't perfect, but it does the bare minimum to let you easily play your games. You'll encounter graphical issues, stutters, and some audio cuts. Okay, but that's emulation for you. At least the games are playable at a decent frame rate and can easily be upscaled. For games that aren't very cooperative right out of the gate, like Donkey Kong 64 or Pokemon Snap, you have the option to change plugin features to make the game run smoothly or fix some important features. Doing this results in an archaic look and feel, but I'll settle for that as long as I can play Monk Simulator 64 without any problems or ads being shoved down my throat. As far as what's new with RetroArch, well, the only thing I can tell, and quite frankly care about from the last time I covered it, is the ability to run the app off of USB. No more network mapping your Xbox's SSD on your PC. The only PC-related steps for RetroArch are installation and external storage setup. Dev mode requires an additional cockamamie-ass step of adding in some security principles in order for the app to recognize the drive first, but easily done. And if you're going to be running RetroArch off a USB device, and trust me you do, there's something pretty darn interesting you can do with that as well. Twenty 2022 brought a big development for one of the cores in the previously mentioned application. Plain and simple, you can install and run Windows 98 through RetroArch on your Xbox Series console. That's a sentence I never thought I'd say or even be the least bit excited about, but here we are. Man, the future is crazy. This is something I don't recommend doing unless you're super psyched about Windows 98 and its games. There are better and easier ways to experience 98, I simply did it out of curiosity and quality testing. The setup process isn't hard at all, but it does require a little bit more work to be done on the PC, so not so plug and play as the rest of the emulators we'll talk about. This is achieved by upgrading DOSBox Pure in your RetroArch cores folder, then simply installing Windows 98 via ISO. Trust me, it's not so straightforward, I'm skipping over a lot of details. Of course, Arcades Games has a full detailed setup guide, so if you're interested, check out his video. Once you launch DOSBox, you simply have to install 98 like you would on a desktop, only using your controller. RetroArch, to my knowledge, doesn't have mouse and keyboard support, but the Xbox controller will get you by fine. It's not great, but it does the job. Once you get past the setup, you essentially have almost a full Windows 98 running on your Xbox. It's fucking bonkers. We were using computers to emulate games, now we have games to emulate computers. Like, what the fuck? The core has full gaming capability as well, you just need to add the right driver support. I didn't do it for this video because I don't have the least bit of interest in 98 games, but it's there for people who care. Digital Foundry has a fantastic video showing off games and comparing the quality to the originals. From what I can tell, the Xbox emulator is just about 1-to-1. It's actually very impressive. I don't know much about 98 and what it can do, but I wouldn't be surprised if the emulated Xbox version can handle everything the OS is capable of. It's still hindered by RetroArch's general jankiness and awfulness, but it works. Yeah, this is an impressive display of the power of the Xbox, but an even greater display of passion of the emulation community for the platform. Like, you crazy sons of bitches actually did it. You put a whole ass PC on a console. Might not be the most modern and sleek of OSs, but I think this really opens the door for other OSs and other computer port projects on the Xbox. It genuinely is interesting to see where people take this and what they do with the technology. It was a big year for PlayStation 2 on the Xbox. We saw 3 standalone emulators hit the platform in 2022, 2 of which were phenomenal and I've already talked about in great detail. The other one, not so much. But to be fair, it was a first and honest attempt at porting PCXS2 onto the Xbox. Given more updates, it could probably have matched the later emulators. PCXS2, it sucked. No memory card, hotkey, or controller configuration, no widescreen patches, weird buggy settings menu, and generally, limited modification options. Games actually ran pretty well, even at upscaled resolution. But the lack of customization and quick feature changes like all the other emulators on the Xbox really hinders this bad boy. Thankfully, 2 successors quickly arose, Aether SX2 and XPSX2. Like I said before, I talked extensively about these 2 emulators, and to be honest, not a whole lot of significant changes has come to the pair. I will only cover minor changes and stuff I missed in the initial videos. Right, so let's crack on. First up, Aether SX2. This was the first app that I heard about and was extremely excited to test and cover. It offered simple setup and use compared to its RetroArch counterpart, phenomenal emulation quality, and tremendous upscaling capabilities. It also had software mode, ensuring that every game on the PlayStation 2 could be without some visual error. Unfortunately, it came at the cost of sacrificing a more modern look and feel, as well as frame rate issues in some rare cases. ASX2 supports multiplayer and multi-tap features, although I have never gotten those to work. Hey, I got it. Turns out I was just an idiot for a year. And supports region-based games, so long as you have the correct BIOS. It's a pretty great dev mode exclusive emulator. Now on to the unfortunate news. There has been a bit of drama and controversy surrounding Aether. If you are looking for the latest UWP build, you'll see the only ones available through the archive are the versions released just before 2023. Or at least that was the case until everybody decided to come out the woodwork while I was away. There's a new version for the Xbox consoles released on April 6th, 2023. Didn't see that one coming. It feels rougher in terms of performance than the December version, but I think it looks much nicer. I can't really tell, I don't care, I've done way too much, I'm done. The developer has slowed development on all their platforms though. If you head over to the Aether SX2 website, you'll see why. Accordingly, the creator has been facing online harassment, impersonating, and even death threats. There are some in the camp that say the developer deserved it for allegedly being an elitist or other type of asshole online. I don't know anything about that. If that's true, that still doesn't make the death threats okay. That's blatantly not fucking cool. As someone who's dealt with a death threat for simply being a little outspoken in a video, I wish I was joking, the whole ordeal is one of the most dreadful experiences I've had to go through. So I can understand why the Aether dev decided to abandon the PS2 project. It sounded like it wasn't worth it. This happened in January of 2023. Fast forward to March and the developer has come back in a rather shocking way. They've decided to give the Android community one final middle finger by sticking ads on the app. In the most recent update, what really rubs salt in the wound is that they've also deleted past versions of the app, so Android users are stuck with the penultimate version. Updating Aether on Android results in advertisements,
Fuck you!
but also a much worse program. Good God, what a petty move. From what I can tell, the Xbox and desktop versions haven't had the same treatment. So if you are still interested in ASX2 on the Xbox, you might want to get installed now. Look, I really can't support the dev's most recent decision. I understand if you want to avoid the app entirely out of some form of protest. I am one of those people that can separate the art from the artist. Aether SX2 is a damn good emulator on the Xbox dev side, and I'm happy with it, extremely happy with it. I do think it's a downright shame things have developed into the situation it is now. A genuinely good PS2 emulator and a passion project of this individual will forever be marked by a dark stain in internet and gaming history due to author and audience animosity. I think we often forget that there are actual people behind our screens, people with thoughts and feelings. We should be more considerate to each other with our digital words and actions, especially when it comes to this topic. It's gaming, for Christ's sake. It should be fun. To the Aether SX2 dev, I hope you can move on and find peace in your life. I hope this experience doesn't wane your passion for gaming and software development. I'm not a developer or coder in any way, but I can definitely see your talent and love for video games. I thank you for providing me and many others a way to play the games we once played in our formative years, now on our favorite consoles. The contributions you made to game preservation can be diminished and badmouthed, but they truly can't be ignored. It was a phenomenal emulator. Cheers. Okay, time to get back on track. Enough of all that sappy shit. Let's talk about PCXS2 and Aether's younger brother, XPSX2. In my opinion, XPS is the sleeker, more stylish version of Aether SX2. It has almost the exact same quality and features of the previous emulator, but functions a little bit different in some aspects and looks a little nicer in some areas. Gameplay and quality is pretty much unchanged from Aether. The previous emulator's gameplay does look nicer and more polished though. The main draw to XPS was its installment preference. It was the retail PS2 emulator. That's obviously not the case anymore. XPSX2 supports online multiplayer for a select few games. I would love to show you this in action, but I couldn't for the life of me get it to work, and to be honest, I don't care. I'm sure I'm offending someone's childhood by not showcasing the online PS2 feature. I just can't bring myself to even give a damn about it. I was always a single player couch co-op kind of guy in the PS2 and GameCube days, and I'm going to stick to that. Look, I'm sorry, we have to move on! This website does have people who have set up the online feature of the emulator correctly, but more importantly provide evidence of it working. So seek out those videos and people if you are interested. It is only a handful of games that work though. This spreadsheet provided by one of the individuals making a video about the subject shows which games can be played on the emulator under some stipulations. But if you don't care about any of that, it's just a damn good PS2 emulator. You can still expect excellent emulation results on the Xbox. Most games run well at a solid 30 or 60 FPS, obviously depends on the game, even at upscaled resolutions with widescreen patches enabled. Things tend to get a bit choppy at 4K or the max 8 times native resolution, but it's still something the Xbox Series X can handle surprisingly well with some titles. Expect some hiccups in the graphics and audio department, as well as some FPS drops in a select few number of games, but that's emulation for you. It's not perfect, but close. Damn near close. And online multiplayer is there for people who want it. No matter what you choose, the key takeaway of this section, PlayStation 2 emulation is now here on the Xbox. It's impressive and really gives the PlayStation 5 and its backwards compat system, or whatever the hell they're doing over there, a run for its money. Now on to the newer, sexier stuff. GameCube and Wii games now have a standalone emulator on the Xbox. Ladies and gentlemen, and that colorful rainbow of people in between, Dolphin is now here on the Xbox Series X and S. Huzzah! UWP Dolphin arrived sometime in late 2022 or in January of 2023, wasn't really paying attention, but it made quite a splash. No longer hindered by RetroArch, the emulator was meant to create the best experience for GameCube and Wii games on the X machines. It's splendid. Going from install, easy setup to play games. Everything runs off your Xbox and external storage device with very little file manipulation on your PC. Sort of. We'll get to that when we get to it. With the standalone, make an empty folder called Dolphin, tell the app this is where all the Dolphin stuff lives now, and add a path to your games, and then you play.
Minted.
Bosh. What you can expect is some great GameCube and Wii emulation. I'll tell you up front, it's far from perfect, but really good. Upon starting up any game, expect the game to stutter and jam up for very brief moments. It'll then return to its usual 30 or 60 FPS. It seems to happen just before the game renders something new, so first playthroughs aren't going to be silky smooth. Widescreen is available for games, and upscaling is also available, but the Series S seems to cap out at 1440p, while the Series X can handle 4K with varying results, depending on the game. It also is changeable very quickly, almost on the fly. The biggest thing to come from the emulator is the shader compilation feature. What do these do? I have no idea. I am literally a college dropout alcoholic that likes to talk about games on the internet. If you came here to learn anything remotely technical, you are in the wrong place. It defaults on synchronized, but the Series S can handle hybridized shaders, while the X can do either hybrid or exclusive. Games will take longer to load in with exclusive shaders though. Doing so enables a smoother gaming experience, I suppose. For a genuine example of improvement, let's examine Twilight Princess. RetroArch stagnated core delivered an okay performance, except in the early area of the Faron Woods. In the standalone Dolphin core running at 1440p and exclusive shaders on, this part of the game runs at the full 30 FPS with some minor drops, but only when the lantern and other harsh lighting is incorporated. It's a striking upgrade, and I guarantee games will only get better in the Xbox with updates. And if you want more enhancements, you can also throw on a texture pack. Installing them is now incredibly easy if you are using an external storage device. It takes a considerable amount of time for games to boot up with something like an HD texture pack, so you might want to use an external SSD for a bit of speed and greater storage for these bulky assets. Even then, games look great and the Series console can run them just fine. Using a Series X with exclusive shaders on at 1440p, games ran pretty well, but they would momentarily freeze up more often, and longer stutters were a common occurrence. It's not a smooth experience, but damn does it look good. Some transition word here, multiplayer set up by default, so if you wanted, you could jump straight into a game of Smash with up to 4 players, or any other multiplayer game so long as you have an Xbox remote active. Controls are fine. For me it's a bit weird due to Xbox buttons being translated to the actual GameCube inputs and not mapped out in the same layout. Playing a 20XX Melee hack pack is a nightmare on the Xbox. Wii games, at least the very few I examined, held up well at 1080p and above, tending to max out at 4K. Stuttering and light freezing aren't as big as a problem as with GameCube, which is honestly surprising. It does take longer to load games up after compiling shaders, and when exiting a game via the emulator menu, the program will just freeze. You'll have to dash quit like you would on an Xbox game. As for motion controls, they just don't work. At least without proper configuration. To do so requires you to set up Dolphin on a PC, match those settings to your Xbox EMU, calibrate and configure, then move those over to the SSD. It's a whole fucking thing. I'm not willing to do all that, and chances are, neither are you. UWP Dolphin is still in its early stages, so obviously everything isn't going to work out. Controller configuration, even in its most basic form, is probably coming next update to the Xbox side. So I'd say Wii games that rely on motion controls aren't really viable in the Xbox yet. And if you wanted to switch buttons on your default control scheme for GameCube, no you don't. But apart from the controller setbacks, minor frame rate issues and stutter, I'd say Dolphin on the Xbox is fantastic and a great way to play these games. It's definitely on the right track, and I can't wait to see what a phenomenal emulator it becomes on Los Boxos. And last but not least, we have the Xbox 360 emulator, Xenia. Yep, an Xbox emulator on an Xbox. With the impressive backwards compatibility of the Xbox systems, why would you want that? And the answer, you don't.
What's wrong with you?
At least not right now. Look, I'm not going to spend this section bashing the emulator and telling you to stay clear of it. Download it if you want, and if your purposes really align with having it. I do think it's a very impressive work-in-progress application. As a matter of fact, it's working better than I expected. And I think it's very impressive that the series consoles are capable of handling a 7th gen outside-party emulator. I'm struggling to see why you'd want to use it on a series console over general retail Xbox. Backwards compatibility is insane on the series already. The argument can be made it's for preserving certain games that aren't listed on the huge list of backwards compatible games and can't be accessed through the MS Store or by any other regular means. That is a perfectly valid point. However, I'd argue that UWP Xenia lacks the basic level of quality to accurately preserve those titles. Okay, hold on. Let's take a step back and examine Xenia first. So, the app installs just as easily as the other standalone emulators. It's very similar to Dolphin when it comes to setup, just tell the app where it should go in your flash drive. But playing games requires an extra step for the time being. Xenia Canary is incapable of using ISO files at the moment. If using ISO files, you have to extract them to subfolders containing individual assets. Easy enough and doesn't take that much time. The free program I use is in the description below. When you do get into a game, it's going to be rough. Expect long load times, black screens with audio effects still playing, choppy cutscenes, and gameplay and glitchy visuals. The one thing you will inevitably encounter is the same with Dolphin. The game will lock up on a particular frame for a couple of seconds and then drop you back in. It's far more severe in Xenia though. This happened several times in Spec Ops: The Line, and one time the game just hard froze. Halo 3, same deal. You want to play the campaign in all its 30 FPS glory? Forget about it. Use main system Xbox. Seriously, the Master Chief Collection is god tier. Forza Motorsport was a bit better, but the choppy, stuttery gameplay makes for a very rough racing experience. There are moments where you do get smooth gameplay and it's beautiful. Deadly Premonition, a game that nobody likes except weirdos like me, played great, but visuals weren't working correctly. It went from a fever dream horror game to an LSD-fueled fever dream horror game. Shockingly, the best performing game in my testing was Red Dead Redemption. It suffers the same issues as the ones I talked about, but less noticeable and less severe. I've only played for a very short time, so there are obviously going to be some parts where the game pushes the emulator to its absolute limits, possibly rendering it unplayable. Still rather impressive for the standalone emulator on a series unit so far. Xenia Canary now includes settings on the menu screen I don't dare touch because it could result in more problems. Someone much smarter than me can have a go at them to improve aspects of the program, and that's that. I know I didn't do an extensive look at the Xenia port, it's new and it's got a lot of stuff to iron out. Also because I still don't see a very practical use for it in the Xbox. If you want to preserve games from the 360 like 360 arcade games, that's a very valid point, and although I don't have any to test out in this video, I can see the emulator handling those very well. For exclusive titles, most of those are available on Game Pass or through the MS Store. Sure, you're going to have to cough up a bit of cash, but at least you get a pleasant experience. I am all about saving money and finding workarounds, but if the price you pay for free games is borderline unplayable, then I'd say it's not worth it. I could eat my own words one day, and I'm more than happy to in the near future, as more progress is made on the emulator, but at the moment, not great on the consoles. I do have hope for it though, and support the continued work on it. The extinction of a lot of 360 games is coming, so you could definitely start stockpiling now, and either play Xenia on PC or wait for a far better state of it on the series. Like we've seen with a lot of UWP emulators, there are many people passionate about preserving games on the Xbox. It's shaping up to be one of the best emulation machines for a good price. So just because it's not great at the moment, give it some time. Xenia could also shape up to be the best way to preserve 360 titles, and enhance them. If there's a big and strong enough community for it, you'll probably get some committed people who volunteer their time to produce texture packs and mods. And how pleasant would it be if all those games were still on Xbox, like they never left? Now, as I just said, there are some very passionate individuals who want to preserve games on the Xbox. I consider UWP emulators a niche product for a niche community. But that doesn't stop the developers and coders from making it the best it can be. I am in no way a developer, coder, or have ever contributed to back-end programming or video game development. As far as I'm concerned, computer programs work through pure fucking magic. I have heard through emulation community channels that creating and maintaining an emulator is hard. It's time-consuming, mostly a thankless endeavor, and not a very lucrative hobby.
Really fulfilling doing something you hate for no money.
Even though emulators are free, it's costly behind the scenes. All that to say, if possible, support your friendly neighborhood emu developer. And the one you can consider donating to is the developer of the hour, the one responsible for the standalone Dolphin and Xenia Xbox port, Sir Mangler. Sir Mangler has left an open letter to the community on Twitter and Discord regarding their situation. TLDR, Sir Mangler is in between jobs and is having a rough time. So if possible, donating at least $1 would help him out for the time being while also allowing continued work on the emulators. And yes, I'll be putting my money where my mouth is and donating. I've been a mere lurker, consumer, and more recently a reporter, I suppose, in the emulation community. And I think it's time to do more for it, and I'll start by helping one of the members that selflessly pours time into some software for a gaming console. Out of all the things to do in this life, I'm thankful they've chosen to make our X-Prisms a little more badass. Gaming preservation is quite important, now more than ever. I'm thankful the Xbox Series X and S allows and is capable of keeping so many different games alive on just one budget system. It's not perfect, but it's come a long way. 2022 exploded with the amount of content for emulation on Series devices in a very good way. I remember when I first stumbled upon the feature. In all honesty, I thought it was a gimmick that would fade away as developers and users would stop progressing the apps on the console, seeing as it wasn't as good as a PC at the time, or even a phone for that matter. Then it kept getting better, then a community sprung up around it that helps one another, impressive standalones popped up, and now emulated games run better than AAA releases. Sure, you'll encounter games that underperform, and sure, it won't be completely error-free. But if I was gaming on a budget and learned the series console could do all this, I'd gladly purchase one. It's incredible what these machines can do. With the dedication of the community, I know there will only be more to come. Looking at you, Switch. We're coming for you. It's pretty exciting to see what'll happen next, how things get better, what new stuff people will bring on, and how much bigger this grows. In 2021, emulating on an Xbox was considered a cool gimmick with some potential. In 2022, it developed into a considerable main feature, done by sheer power and community. I'm not sure what'll happen next, but from where I'm standing, it's looking pretty good for our series rectangles. Thanks for watching. My name is Efrain. Adios.